Rev&Roll Garage family. All right. Today we're going to be assembling some AN line. First thing you're going to need is your AN line. This is PTFE 6AN. Then you're going to need your fittings. I try to keep my brands matching. So, Evil Energy AN line, Evil Energy AN fittings. It's all PTFE also. These are going to be your main fittings that you're going to need for this. These are the fittings that you use to attach all of your fittings to your line. It's basically like a compression fitting if you ever use like a brake line kit or anything like that. Then we got a union. It's a dual male end union. Attach two females together.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And then we have this 45-degree attachment also. Next thing you're gonna need is a good AN wrench. These are made from aluminum, so they don't damage the fittings up. Doesn't scratch them up or anything. If you use steel, the fittings are aluminum, so the steel will gouge them up and cause unnecessary scratching. Next thing you're gonna need is some painter's tape, and you use this to basically section off your area that you're cutting. You put your tape on, wrap it around, and then cut in between the tape, and that way the braided portion doesn't fray away, and it'll allow you to keep everything clean, and it'll be a clean cut all the way around. All right, we're talking about cutting. Don't use this. You see how it's all worn down and small? It should be about the same size as this. If you want a clean cut, just use a new one. They're pretty cheap. I think I got this whole pack for like $10 at Harbor Freight. So don't use this. Make sure you have eye protection, of course. It is mainly plastic and nylon, but there is like steel in the threadings, so just be careful. Make sure you wear eye protection. You're gonna need some type of vise. This is just a cheap Harbor Freight suction vise. It works, so I'll be using that. And then of course you're gonna need your angle grinder. I think I got this at Harbor Freight for like $15. It was on sale, so can't really beat that. And then last thing you need is a source of pressurized air to blow your line out once you get done. All right, we're gonna get started here. All right, first things first. You got to get your measurements on how much line you're gonna need. Always measure for more than what you need. You always have like clearance issues or maybe you need a little slack. So always try to measure a little bit more just to be on the safe side. So this is speaker wire, and I basically just used it because it was, what I had available at the moment. You could use anything, rope or maybe like some sort of tape or something. Just anything that you could use for measurements. This was just easy. So looks like it's gonna be, it's about right there. And if you notice, I used this end instead of this end. I already have like a piece cut on this end and it wasn't that straight, so I'll just start with a fresh end just to have the cleanest cuts possible. So about right there. I'll take my tape. Doesn't have to be much, just enough to get on there. Once you got that on, and you'll take that and get it as close to the line in the vise as you can. You don't want to squeeze this all the way down, just enough to hold the line in place while you cut. So that should be good right there. Just to save you guys an earache, I probably put music over the cutting. It's pretty loud, so just bear with me. All right, so I got that cut. And here it is here. It's pretty straight. See, it's not much line that I need, but it's pretty much all I need. Now that we've done the cutting, I just want to take this air compressor hose and you want to blow anything that could be inside the line out. Just keep any debris free of your power steering pump. Now here comes the tricky part. You take one of your PTFE fittings and you unscrew it. It's going to be a little.
Go ahead, you got it.
Metal piece inside. And you're going to take this. You need to unwrap your ends now. Do one at a time just to keep it clean. I'm actually going to take this out of the vise. Lock that down on the vise. And I got to get this in to possibly fray a little, just so I can get this piece on. I'll put this on here pretty tight. I don't know if I can get that off right now. I'll be back when I get this situated. Okay, I got that seated in there pretty good. Once you get that seated pretty much all the way down, you want to check inside of here and you want to make sure that the plastic is all touching this inner lip. That's basically gonna be your seal right there. Now what you can do is, to make sure that everything's all tight and needy, is you'll take this end and you'll just shove that in there, and you're just making sure that that'll go in there pretty nice. There's some rotation there, and then when I pull it out, everything's perfectly aligned in there. So, all right, guys. I kind of made a mistake, but it's fine. So you actually want to put this piece on first, just to because this is the piece that goes underneath this piece, and you can't get this on here if you already have it attached. But we still have this line open, so I'll just slide that on here. Now that's there. Now you shove this in here. You're gonna just get this as tight as you can get it by hand. Sometimes you gotta play with the lines a little bit, but once you get that settled, you're gonna stick it in the vise. Now you'll take your AN line. Mine has measurements, so B nut, S nut size.
These nuts. Got him. Got him.
You just take that and get that all lined up. Just spin that thing on. I always try to lock mine in all the way down. Some brands you don't have to. Just get it tight enough to where it's not going to come off. But you can never be too safe. Okay, it's locked all the way down. She's not going anywhere. I'll just do that one off camera. Here's the final result. And if I do say so myself, this thing looks pretty perfect. Last thing we need to do is get it attached to the power steering pump and test it out to see if it works. All right, see y'all over there. All right, everybody, over here in the work area. As you've seen probably on my channel, this is the engine bay of my Buick LaCrosse Super 5.3. It's cammed, tuned, E85, Trailblazer SS intake, the works, built transmission. Main issue I had with this build was getting the intake to fit. This pulley here used to be a power steering pump. to fit this intake without cutting or grinding at the intake, the best option was to delete the power steering pump. So that's what I did, and that's why I have a electric power steering pump in this car. This electric power steering pump is from a Volvo S40, I believe. Relatively cheap if you get it at a junkyard. If you try to find it on like eBay, it's, you know, it ranges from, you know, maybe 150 to $200. But I got it for about $50 at the junkyard. So, and it works. I've already tested it. I had lines hooked up wrong and led me down a rabbit hole, and I think that I have it all figured out now, and I'm gonna get this thing working. All right, so first things first, we're gonna use this union end, if it focuses. We're gonna use this end to connect our lines together. Should be pretty simple, but you just take your line, screw that in. Okay, so there's another use for your tape. I only have one AN wrench, and to prevent scarring up the fittings, you could put tape around it. And use a steel wrench. Still be very careful. It's steel, so I mean, tape isn't any stronger than aluminum, but it is a layer of protection, so we do have that. So now I'll just tighten this end up. It's on there pretty good. Now we can get our line on. This is also pretty simple. Screw that on. And we'll do the same thing with this hose. Wrap that. Don't need to go crazy tightening it. It's aluminum and you can strip it pretty easily, so just be careful. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now, there's only one thing left to do. Get it attached to the pump. I'm going to do this part off camera. The lighting sucks, and I don't really want to use the flash from my phone. I'll get that done. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, I tried the 45. It doesn't really line up that well, so I'm gonna use a 90 instead.
2 days later.
All right, everybody, let me show y'all what I came up with. All right, so the 90 didn't work that well on its own, and the 45 didn't work that well on its own, but I was able to put them together and make something work. So it's the 90 coming straight off of the power steering pump, and then turning into the 45, and then attaching to the line and coming up back here. All right, this can go one or two ways: perfectly good or horribly wrong. Let's see how it goes. All right, I might have heard something gargling out. Let me see what happened. All right, guys, worst case scenario happened. Damn shame. Okay, so everything works fine. Only problem is there at the top of the rack. If it focuses, it's leaking from right there.
Boy, ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy.
9 times out of 10, I'm screwed. Alright guys, that wraps up the video. In the meantime, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do about the rack and pinion. Like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Thank you.